create the depression. I believe it's the dysfunction of the family that creates the depression. So once again, I'm going to pop that under abuse. Next, major events. They say starting a new job, graduating, or getting married can lead to depression. Not likely. Usually people are excited about that stuff. However, it goes on to say losing a job, losing income, getting divorced can cause depression. Well, yeah. Losing a job could be the result of being in a toxic workplace environment with an abusive boss. Being divorced is oftentimes the result of an abusive marriage. So, once again, we could pop that under abuse, narcissistic abuse. Next, they have other personal problems, social isolation, being cast out of a family or a social group. All can contribute to clinical depression. Once again, we're getting into narcissistic abuse. Obviously, being cast out, being rejected, being betrayed, being the scapegoat. This is all related to abuse. Next is serious illness. Sometimes depression happens along with a major illness. Okay. Finally, one that we might be able to put under other. However, as I've made a video talking about this before, most illness is in fact a result of narcissistic abuse, including gastrointestinal issues, including autoimmune disorders, inflammation. All of it has been linked to narcissistic abuse and toxic relationships these days. You can watch the video I made of that. So once again, this could either go under other or it could go under abuse. Last but not least, substance misuse. Nearly 30% of people with substance misuse problems also have major clinical depression. What's the number one reason for substance abuse? To cope with toxic relationships and narcissistic abuse. That's what creates substance abuse, which creates depression. As you can plainly see, as we can all see, the bulk of depression, the majority of depression is caused by narcissistic abuse and toxic relationships. Don't let anybody ever tell you that you are somehow born with some crazy thing that makes you depressed. We just went over the medical experts' understanding, and half-baked in all of it, the majority of it, I would say 99% of it, is the result of toxic relationships. I'm going to share with you why I believe narcissistic abuse causes depression, as I've experienced in my own life. I've experienced being in that situation, being around families within a dysfunctional family dynamic where nothing you're interested in is good, where everything is demeaned and devalued. Your interests, your passions. Don't do that. Don't do this. This is dumb. This is stupid. To the point where you release all of your interests, you release all of your passions, you let them go. You stop trying. It wears you down. And instead, you start defending yourself. So you give up all of your interests in life in order to be able to defend yourself, and this becomes your life, just defending yourself. What's a life worth living when you're constantly just defending yourself? You have nothing to live for. This is why narcissistic abuse causes depression, because it breaks you away from the things you love and causes you to just be in a place of constant defense. Here's what I learned. Once I cut free of the toxic relationships and I moved states away, it didn't solve all the problems, don't get me wrong, because as they say, wherever you go, there you are. So I carried with me the broken passions and interests of my life, still trying to defend myself. Even though I was states away from these people, I was still feeling like I constantly needed to prove and defend myself. And I was very depressed. And so I understood something, that the depression is actually a part of me. Like any virus or illness, it's already inside of each and every one of us. Depression exists inside of us. The goal is to not get rid of depression. The goal is to stay ahead of it. The goal is to suppress it. The goal is to keep it dormant, like any other illness. Let me ask you a question. How do you beat the cold and the flu, which are illnesses that for the most part are already in us? Well, the answer is it's your lifestyle, it's your habits, it's what you're doing, it's your activity that creates the health to have the immune response to what? Everybody say it together. To suppress the illnesses. The same is true with depression. Depression is nothing more than an internal illness that's already there. It's present in everybody, and it wants to stay dormant, but it's up to our lifestyle and what we're doing to stay ahead of it. Not to get rid of it, but to stay ahead of it and to keep it suppressed, to keep it dormant. So I started looking at my depression as when it's coming over me, when it's bubbling to the surface, it's an indication, it's a warning that I'm not doing something in my life that's healthy. I'm not doing something to suppress it. I'm not taking care of myself mentally and emotionally. I'm not planning. I'm not reaching. I'm not setting goals. I'm not being active. Because these are the things that suppress depression. You see, there's two ways, like with illnesses like cold or the flu, there's two ways you can deal with it. You can pop all kinds of NyQuil and whatever else chemicals coming out of the labs. I'm not saying they're all bad, don't get me wrong, to try to fight it. Or you can get weeks ahead of it by walking daily, jogging daily, working out, exercising, hitting the sauna, drinking lots of water, taking care of yourself. You stay ahead of the illnesses this way to suppress them. Same is true with depression. I learned this in my life. My depression didn't go away until I started looking forward to things, planning things, stepping outside, doing things that I enjoy again. Just this past weekend, that's not to say you won't go and create dysfunction of your own. However, you're not to stay living under their dysfunction. So I don't believe it's the genes that create the depression. I believe it's the dysfunction of the family that creates the depression. So once again, I'm going to pop that under abuse. Next, major events. They say starting a new job, graduating, or getting married can lead to depression. Not likely. Usually people are excited about that stuff. However, it goes on to say losing a job, losing income, getting divorced can cause depression. Well, yeah. Losing a job could be the result of being in a toxic workplace environment with an abusive boss. Being divorced is oftentimes the result of an abusive marriage. So, once again, we could pop that under abuse, narcissistic abuse. Next, they have other personal problems, social isolation, being cast out of a family or a social group. All can contribute to clinical depression. Once again, we're getting into narcissistic abuse. Obviously, being cast out, being rejected, being betrayed, being the scapegoat. This is all related to abuse.